5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Welcome to another episode of the Ready Set Poem Podcast, your premier source for everything to do with the Toronto Defiant and the Vancouver Titans. I am Chris at Lifeforce, joined virtually by Sam, another Sam Chan, Omni at Omni Strife. Welcome to the road show, gentlemen.
Welcome. Yeah, it's been pretty nice week, except for the terrible hamstring pain that I've been having since acquiring Ring Fit.
See, I have Ring Fit. I have yet to get enough TV time to actually use it. I tried to play it on just my Switch in my den here, small screen. It's not conducive to that type of experience.
I was going into it without really knowing anything, but this little thing gets to you if you set the level high. It's tough.
What's your guys' review of it? Because I had it sitting in my cart on Amazon, I think a while back, and I never pressed send.
No.
And then of course it sold out, right? Because all things do nowadays.
I mean, I like it a lot. I think it's great. I just played it for a couple of days with Lena, and it's actually a workout, but it's more a workout. Well, I don't know. It's 60% work, maybe 70% workout, and 30% game. So don't expect it to be I don't know, Breath of the Wild or something like that, but it's good for what it is. It's really
lose
fun.
Your breath, maybe.
Yeah, exactly.
I can't
out of breath.
Yeah, I can't give a review because I played it on the small screen for 15-20 minutes. So
I'm really impressed with the hardware itself and how reactive it is, and it actually pushes you to go. It's good. It's good.
Speaking of fitness and gaming, I remember when I had a Nintendo Wii, one of the most exciting moments for me was when I got the remake of Punch-Out, where I actually got to fight, until I realized that it actually required you to put in quite a lot of, physical effort. It wasn't as much fun anymore.
Yeah. A little bit of a more of a tangent. The most difficult though gaming experience for me was playing Skyrim VR, where I enabled all the move to actually crouch and move to swim and move your hand to shoot an arrow. So going through a dungeon really was quite an experience.
Yeah, I was actually gonna mention VR because Beat Saber's kind of a workout. And they have boxing VR too, which is actually a workout.
Oh, that's grueling. The I forgot what it's called, Fight Night or something like that. Yeah.
Imagine
the thrill of a fight. It's called. It's insane.
Imagine if Overwatch had a VR mode. I'd just be.
I mean, what does VR look like in Spawn?
Don't know.
You play Reinhardt, and then at the end of the game, you take off your headset, and everything is wrecked in your room.
Pretty much. But that's the thing, is would I play Reinhardt at that point? No, I just couldn't. I'd be who is the hero? I'll be Bastion. I'll just go into turret mode, and I'll just move around going pew pew pew. We're not here to talk about VR games, however. We're here to talk about the world of the Overwatch League, the Toronto Defiant, and Vancouver Titans. And there's actually been news from Vancouver that we get to talk about, so that's pretty exciting. We also, as we had alluded to last episode, have an interview lined up. KarQ is going to join us a little bit later. Sam here is going to tap out. KarQ is going to tap in. We're going to learn a little bit more about his journey as a content creator, who is now, as we had shared last episode, back with the Toronto Defiant for the 2021 season. And then in the Overwatch League itself, oh my goodness, have there been changes. We were talking before we hit the record button as to whether or not we needed a bonus episode just to talk about every single one of those changes. So let's see if we can get this one under 2 hours. It's a whole lot of content, let me tell you. So you know what? We're going to waste no further time. We're going to get ourselves moving along with the payload.
Moving the payload. Join me.
The Vancouver Titans announced some changes. They announced 3 players being dropped, 3 players being re-signed, leaving one sort of in the wind. And I have to admit, I saw one of the drops and one of the signs as catching me by surprise. So let's talk a little bit about that. Let's talk about the three players that are not going to be returning to the Vancouver Titans. Those three players are KarQ, Suna, and KSAA. Which of the three surprises you the most?
KSA, obviously. For me, at least.
It really seemed, and again, we don't know everything that went into that decision as to dropping him. He had alluded to in Twitter after the news came out that he had significant difficulty dealing with ping. Mm-hmm. He was missing practices, scrims. He was having connection issues, which, quite frankly, if he was dealing with all of that and still playing as well as he was in match, I kind of wonder, like, why would you not look to bring him back unless, was this more of a decision on his end too? Like, was it mutual, or could it have been that the Titans had said, well, we need you to come here full time next year, and he's like, well, no, I'm not going to, or I mean, we don't know, but that shocked me. And again, I'm not trying to downplay the role that Suna had with the team. We don't, unfortunately, know what that role was, because once Shockwave arrived, he found his way to the bench. And we had talked a little bit about KarQ over the course of the season, and I know there are a lot of people who feel that he didn't get a fair shake in Vancouver, but I don't know if I saw enough from him that would have suggested that there isn't better talent on the market. And again, we're going to talk about what talent is available. I don't see how KarQ fit in that picture. But anything about those three being dropped that you'd like to mention?
I mean, this being not fair might be true, but that's the world of competitive esports or Overwatch or whatever you want to call it. That's what everybody's is dealing with. And it sucks that we had the two players that were dropped with the ping issues. Hopefully they might find their way back to a roster. What can you do? You're dealt these cards and you try to do your best with them. Some players did better, some players did worse, and it is what it is.
Yeah, I think it's a little bit more difficult to get KSA out of, I want to say Saudi Arabia, right?
Yeah, Kingdom of Saudi Arabia.
Yeah, and just getting the visas and stuff like that. Like, my guess would be that whatever way the league shapes out next year, that there's gonna be some sort of virtual play at some points, even if it's just practices and things like that, unless, we go back to this whole kind of team house concept, live together, breathe together, etc. But I really don't get the sense that CSC specifically will want to do that again, if possible. Unless something else shakes up altogether and we're back in live action and things like that. But some sort of hybrid thing, like, I imagine it's just so much easier for them to be on the same coast. And so if they're getting KSA a visa to play a virtual game, I can kind of see where that would be like a hard sell to someone like immigration. And so at the end of the day, I think it's a casualty of a bunch of things. From what I can tell, like, it didn't seem like there was any like teamwork issues for KSA anyway. Like, they probably were pleasant with each other as far as we can tell. But the other two guys, I think it's a tale of two different stories. Suna was a case of honestly pretty bad luck. I think we really forget, before we knew anything about the new roster, when Dalton and Suna both came on, we were kind of already questioning, because they had similar hero pools, not exactly the same, but Suna, like, I don't think a lot of people know, played a lot of Tracer back in the day. I think he also did a lot of Soldier. And so, Tracer kind of became Dalton's go-to throughout the rest of the season, and there was that. And then actually when Shockwave came in, it was kind of like a triple up effect. So like, can Suna play? Like, I don't know.
He was also asked to play a lot of Sombra, which is not his like comfort pick anyways.
No,
well, wasn't Dalton's either. Like, when we consider the team that started off the rebuilt roster season, you had Suna and Dalton almost drawing straws as to who had to play the flex damage role. And, Suna unfortunately drew that straw. The moment Shockwave arrives on the scene, not only does he arrive on the scene when Echo comes into play and was lights out, we started to see him do crazy things on ping with the likes of a Widow, him also being able to pop off when need be. It freed Dalton up. That's not a Suna issue. That's just, unfortunately, the powers that be deciding those were the two they were going to, or three that they were going to go with.
Yeah, but at the same time, like the limited time we saw Suna, like it was not good. Like there's no sugarcoating it. So limited sample size, but it is what it is. The guy with a ton of sample size, I think, is KarQ, who we saw the entire season, and I think we noted a lot of his different struggles, pretty much on any character except Brig. He had a very solid Brig, but honestly, with what we're going to talk about in the rest of the episode, like there's so many different options to choose from now. Like Western, European, Asian, like whatever type of player you want, there's someone on the market right now for the right price.
Yeah.
And with tier 2 players coming of age as well, that's another layer on top.
Yeah. When it comes down to it, again, to me, KSA is a shock. Obviously, probably more to that. Suna, not really a surprise. KarQ, to the point that all three of us raised. It's difficult to look at KarQ saying we're going to keep him when we have all these other options that we like. There are so many players that are going to be available that, quite frankly, if I'm a team, whether I'm the Vancouver Titans or I'm the San Francisco Shock, I'm reevaluating the roster that I have regardless. It's just in a case of the Shock, their bench strength is already significant. So, unfortunately, the Titans is not the Shock. Before we talk a little bit about the three that are sticking around, isn't it unfortunate timing or what that Social has a scheduled tweet about KSAA and a video to showcase, and then just later that afternoon they get news that he's no longer with the team. And I'm not looking to apologize for the team, or it's just how this system works. This is not a Vancouver Titans issue. This is an organizational issue. Those that are in charge of the Twitter account are not the people who are in charge of the contracts and the player personnel decisions. And while I imagine the relationships vary across the league as to how much information flows between those two groups, you don't play go fish with your cards up. And that's ultimately what occurred here. It's just so unfortunate that the timing was such that they're like, yeah, look at our, off tank, king. A few hours later, peace be with you.
Have you seen the latest tweet from the Titans?
The latest tweet? No. What was it?
It's a montage from Shockwave.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah, everybody's freaking out right now. Is this a pattern?
Oh, man. Well, okay, let's talk about the three that were announced as coming back. They are Shredlock, Dalton, and Rolf. So not Shockwave. We'll talk about Shockwave individually in a moment. The surprise here for me is Shredlock. Dalton coming back made a lot of sense. I think if you were to have asked me of what players would the Vancouver Titans look to run back, I would have told you KSAA, Dalton, Shockwave, and I liked Rolf. And I liked the role that he played, and I feel there's so much more potential that he can provide this team. He joined us on the podcast episode, and you can tell very good head on his shoulders. He's got a maturity to him. This is a guy that's going to evolve into a coaching role if he wants it. And so for me, I feel that it's important to have someone like that on the roster. So when I look at these three, Shredlock didn't make that list, and that's the one that I find interesting. There are moments where Shredlock looks really good, and we ask that question. Is he feeding or support unable to give him the love that he needs in his aggression? And I'm going to gather that the decision was that, no, I think we've got potential and we just need to get the right support and maybe, off tank around him. The other thing going for him, though, and if you wanted a further sign that this team is going to go and try to embrace the, regional meta, kid's a Canadian.
Yep.
Okay. But thoughts on those three returning?
I can start. I mean, like you said, it might bring out some questions about Shredlock, especially when we are surprised about KSA, who is another, like, the second tank that we had was dropped. But maybe, like, the fact that KSA had a lot of issues behind the scenes with ping and whatnot, maybe Shredlock was, a good fundamental teammate for a lot of his buddies, and maybe something about him resonated with the Titans beyond his successes or failures that frankly went with the team, such as they were.
Mhm.
As for Dalton, I'm really happy about this signing, because we're going to talk about Shockwave in a minute, and he's definitely the more flashy player. But I'd say Dalton is the one you really need on your team, because when is Tracer going to be not required? When will you not need a solid player who will maybe not have as high a peak as a lot of other, like, superstars in the Overwatch League, but he has some sort of stability about him that I like. He'll never have, like, a bad game, whereas someone like Shockwave might have one. Rolf, I feel like we talked about him a little bit last time around, and I am definitely not surprised. He's kind of like became the face of the franchise, so to speak. And yeah, I'm all for having him on. He's a vet, really, if you can ever recall, like, 4 years playing Overwatch. So I'm happy it was re-signed. I think that he can really be a good flex support for us going forward.
Yeah, I mean, the man has his own face on a cup, right?
Definitely.
So does Dalton and a couple other guys too. But the way I kind of look at it is I think to give Shredlock a little more credit than we signed the guy because he's Canadian. I think both him and actually the majority of the team, like, they're super duper young. Even Overwatch standards, where when we look at it from our vantage points, they're all young, right? But I just mean, like, they were barely eligible, some of them, and in my eyes, like, the Titans have room for one project. I think a good comparison in terms of, like, how we can measure Shredlock's capabilities are comparing with someone like Beast in the coming year. Like, in my eyes, the Titans should always have room for one, what I would call project player, where they have some potential and you wanted to see a little bit more. But the problem a lot with last year is they really had two major projects in Shredlock and KarQ. And so I'm not entirely surprised that we kept one of them, but definitely not both of them. And it's nothing to each of these characters on their own. Just, like, I can't think of, like, how you're going to stay competitive if you're trying to work out the kinks with 1/3 of your playing roster at the same time.
So that leaves Shockwave, who is currently in the wind. The Vancouver Titans have not come out and said he's no longer coming back, nor have they come out and said that we're going to keep him. And there are people who are like, oh my goodness, why aren't you saying anything? I, quite frankly, think Shockwave is simply looking to play the market. And if I'm Shockwave, why wouldn't I? Why would I go and commit myself to a Vancouver Titans team when, for all intents and purposes, I've made a name for myself in a league and I've been noticed? Now, that's not to suggest that he doesn't come back as a Titan, but he's simply exploring opportunity. The fact that the Vancouver Titans have not come out and said he's not coming back, to me, is a clear indicator they want him back. But at the end of the day, the power remains in his hands. Look at the rest of the roster. Might Dalton have been picked up? Rolf might have been picked up. Redlock might have been picked up. Sure. But if you were to go and consider Shockwave, and that, Shockwave would get picked up. I can't imagine a team not going and taking a flyer on Shockwave at this point. He's proved himself. So does he come back? Like, does he return as a Vancouver Titan, or do you think that he goes and finds another team? For instance, the London Spitfire, who arguably might be going to a Eurocentric roster, one that is closer to home.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head there. I would be shocked, no pun intended, if there's not an offer on the table for him from the Titans. And we're just waiting, and he's waiting to see if there's a better one out there.
Yeah, in my mind, I'll go out and say it. I think he's gone. I wouldn't actually be surprised if the Defiant made a good offer for them. So our buddies down in Toronto, I can see that happening as well. I think London Spitfire is the kind of obvious place for him, but I also think like a lot of the issues that we're going to talk about with a lot of teams in this league is how can they build a brand for themselves? How can they establish themselves beyond just playing well or getting good results. And a lot of the issues that teams have been having is like, okay, they want to have more English speaking personalities on their teams, and Shockwave is definitely a personality. So he's one of those types of players that's really, really good, but also could be very marketable, kind of like a space, right? So like I can see like teams that are trying to build more brand presence, they put in a huge offer for him. And at the same time, I don't see the Titans dropping serious coin this season, just because of the progression of where we are at as an org, we quote unquote.
Yeah. So again, we don't know much more than anyone else. What we're just providing here is our own opinion, and I have to agree. I don't know how Shockwave returns as a Titan. I just think there's better offers to be made out there. And that's not, I know some will hear that like, oh, the Titans are a horrible organization because they're not bringing back one of their best players. If it were that easy, all the best players would remain on the team that they ever connect to in any form of competitive scene, whether it be meat sports or esports. And that's not the way the system works. A few other notes as to sort of former-ish personnel. Wheats, who had announced on Twitter that he was no longer with the Vancouver Titans. He has found a head coaching role with Noble in Tier 2. Now, what's interesting about Wheats, and I kind of commented about it last episode, he said he was no longer with the Titans. He has since found a new team and will be coaching there, but the Vancouver Titans have not acknowledged that he's no longer with them. It's kind of weird in my mind. And I at the time, I kind of thought, well, okay, no, there's, they're waiting for their moment to go and make these announcements to be consistent in brand. And that's bang on when it comes to Canuck Sports Entertainment, how they sort of do things. It's still kind of weird, though, that we already know he's gone. And congratulations to him to finding a new role, a head coaching opportunity that hopefully, not only does he excel in, but gets him back into the main show of the Overwatch League. But as far as anyone else might be concerned, he's still a Vancouver Titan.
Yeah. I mean, I don't want to take the moment away from Wheats. It's a little bit strange what the Titans are currently doing. But hats off to him. I'm really happy for him.
Yeah, and that's what I bring that up. It's kind of weird, but you're right. This is about Wheats. Good for him. He's good to us, and glad he's landed on his feet. The other former Vancouver Titan that made news, Hacksaw, has retired from competitive Overwatch. I don't know all of the reasons quite yet. It just sort of came down late as we were about to hit record. From the sounds of things, he just no longer sort of had it in him. A lot of negativity in the scene. Is thinking of becoming a streamer again, looking at League. But, I know there are many out there are going to be like, oh my goodness, the Vancouver Titans broke Haxel, that one of the greatest, players in the game. I can't imagine the experience was a good one. But there's more to simply that. And if that is what broke a player, there's probably something else that might have gone and broken a player too. Omni, before we hit record, I mean, you're of the opinion Haxel will return.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like this is a type of retirement that will last long. I mean, the guy's been playing Overwatch since it came out and was on the scene. I don't think that the Titans had anything to do with it. I mean, he was in a good spot with NYXL. So had he stayed with the Titans and then retired, maybe there would be some weight to that claim. But yeah, we already had a few players just announcing retirements only to return. I have nothing to base this on, but I kind of feel like Haxel will be one of those that will promptly return to the scene, maybe after a well-deserved break.
Shout out to the Fisher retirement.
I'm just reading some of the conversation going on in RSP Cord about a recent interview that Haxall had with Jay Hong, and one of the questions that was presented to him is, throughout the season, what did you have to keep in mind the most? And his answer was, since I changed team, the rules are different. Things like waking up times was new to me, and things like different positionings for each map, that was new to me as well. So the positioning, I totally get that. Different systems, different coaching style, different personnel, players, what have you. The things like waking up times, though, what does he mean by that? Well, we had heard through the grapevine that the young Vancouver Titans roster that once was sort of ran to the beat of their own drum, sort of set their own schedule. And I'm not suggesting that that's unusual. It seems that, in the general esports world, many teams sort of operate this way. It doesn't sound like the Vancouver Titans organization wanted to operate that way, so that created some obviously friction. But it's just, again, I think this comes down to me needing to remember, when we talk about Overwatch League pros, for the most part, many of them are young, impressionable, and really understanding what it means to be a pro. And it's not like you go to school and take courses that say, here's how you become an esports professional. You need the right people around you, the right organization around you, the right structure around you to do that. And, it's possible that that's what was missing. And maybe that's good for the Titans. Maybe that's an experience other teams can take from and go, well, yeah, if NYXL was stressing him out over wake up times, yeah.
I don't know. Like, in my eyes, if employees are not showing up on time all the time, it's management's fault. But I'm always with it's always management fault type of approach. So yeah, I'm a manager myself. I'm
I was just gonna
full
say
responsibility. Yeah.
But yeah, like that interview, I think we'd be remiss not to put it in the show notes or something. Like, that's a really cool interview from another former Titan,
right?
Rujay Hong. So like, I think do yourselves a favor, go back and check it out on Reddit if it's in English, or if you guys can find the actual interview in Korean and you speak Korean, like, have at it. Because I think, out of context a little bit, like, they were joking around with each other, talking about the sleeping and stuff like that, but I always think there's an element of truth to every joke, so take that for what you will. But yeah, like the interview itself, I think it's really, really interesting. He talks about, like, his top 3 DPS in the game and things like that, and so on and so forth, and what he's been up to now. So I think it's a good catch up for both the former Titans.
Yeah. Moving across the country over into Toronto, the hot rumor right now for the Defiant, we don't have anything official, but the hot rumor is that Arachne might be joining them. Now, he is a former assistant coach with the San Francisco Shock. So the Shock have made some changes. We'll talk more about that with the Fray. Why is this the hot rumor? Well, he had commented that he was looking for a team. Then that tweet got deleted. Then he tweeted eye emojis. And if there's a group that understands the eye emoji, it's definitely us here at RSP.
Yeah.
If you look at who he's actually following, he's following the Defiant, he's following Albles, and I want to say OAM as well. And it's interesting that those would be the follows. Now, it could simply be, hey, I saw you were looking to hire for this position, and I'm going to apply. And I understand that could be as simple as it would be. You want to follow, get that connection, do some research. Hey, good on you. But where there's smoke, there seems to be maybe a little bit of fire.
Is he following RSP?
He is not yet. At the moment he follows RSP, bonus episode. We'll just make the announcement before the team does. But
so he's probably not coming in our squad then, right?
Yeah, no. Team RSP is not going to be coached by Arachne.
Disappointing.
Now, if this comes to fruition, I think it's a good pickup. I think the Defiant are looking to obviously build their organization with proven strength. We've sort of seen this iterate, and I'm sort of thinking sort of through where they've evolved. And, it's important to win. And I think, finding someone who's proven that they can in another organization, one that has had a lot of success, is a good way to to start in that direction. And the last thing we want to talk a little bit about before we go into the interview with KarQ is that the parent company of the Toronto Defiant, Overactive Media, recently announced a partnership with Egal Canada. Now, what the partnership is about, and just to give you some background here, is Egal Canada is really an organization that's focused on supporting rights of the LGBTQIS or I2S people and creating an inclusive and safe space, whether it be in esports or in gaming. And what OAM is looking to do is really focus on improving diversity within the industry, and based on their press release, really focusing on ways to become more inclusive. I'm a big fan of sports in general, whether it be esports or meat sports, but gaming specifically is becoming a more inclusive environment. I've talked about how I really wish people were better in this space. So I plaudits to the Defiant, but also Overactive Media for setting up such a partnership and ultimately looking at what they can do within their community, because I believe the focus is primarily in Toronto and the Ontario region to develop activities within the area. So we'll take ourselves a quick break here, and Sam, you'll tap out. KarQ, he's going to tap in.
Hey everyone, Extra Life is looking for gamers.
Extra Life from Children's Miracle Network Hospitals raises money through gaming of all kinds. Every dollar raised stays local to help our children's hospital when they need it the most. Play games any day and fund vital life-saving equipment, charitable care, research, and more. For all the details on Extra Life, go to extra-life.org.
Connect with thousands of other gamers.
Play games, heal kids. Extra-life.org.
Come out and face me!
Here we are, joined by content creator extraordinaire and on board again with not the Vancouver Titans. Oh my goodness, the Toronto Defiant. I got too much Canada on my mind. It's hard to keep track. We got KarQ. We had told you he was going to be joining us. He is here now. Myself and Omni are on board to chat with him. No idea where Sam went, which I'm only sort of hedging my bets that he'll be with us when we actually record our episode. And if he wasn't there earlier, then nothing has changed. But welcome, KarQ. How goes your week?
Yeah, thanks for having me on. Really appreciate it. I'm doing well. Week's been all right. It's just going day by day. Had a good streams all week. Played in a little tournament today, and yeah, here we are.
Cool. Well, again, thanks for joining us on Ready Set Pwn here, and we obviously are looking to expand our coverage, and we've sort of done that over the course of last season. As you may or may not know, we used to describe ourselves as the premier source for everything to do with Vancouver Titans, but we decided to go across the country, go Canada-wide, and now we're really starting to dive into the world of the Toronto Defiant, and seeing as, you are a content creator, a streamer that rocks the TD flag, we thought, why not? Let's get you on board. Plus, you're probably one of the smartest people this side of the border, right? When it comes to Overwatch, I've watched your videos where you break things down.
Oh, thank you. You don't have to give me. I appreciate the compliments. Thank you.
Yeah, me personally, I thought that everything would be around just adding a little bit of red to our logos, but here we are. So it's been going quite well.
But what I thought we could do is talk a little bit about how you got into the world of content creation, being a streamer. I imagine there are a number of our listeners who do that themselves. There might be others that have considered, content creation. So tell me, at what point in time did you decide putting yourself in front of a camera and broadcasting yourself to the world was something that you wanted to do? And two, maybe the follow-up to that is, how did it become a job where you're, on contract with the Toronto Defiant?
Well, I guess it started many, many years ago. I've been a gamer my whole life, and I think in 2010, 10 years ago, I was in high school, end of high school, I started picking up a game called League of Legends, and I got really sucked into that world of live streaming. I was watching a bunch of streamers at that time, watched a lot of YouTube content. I was just consuming media in like copious amounts because of this League of Legends addiction. It was actually unreal.
What's that game? Is that something new or it's something small, right? I heard about it.
Yeah,
before.
yeah, it's a little tiny game. Maybe you play it on your phone. Who knows? So I got really sucked into that world. I was watching stuff on before it was Twitch. It was Justin TV, watching stuff on like Owned TV or something like that. But in any case, once I kind of like wrapped myself into that world, at that time, maybe like a year later, 2011, 2012, when I was in university, I would skip a lot of classes and just play the game and just keep watching content. And then it got to a point where like, oh, I kind of want to make YouTube content and stream as well. So I tried it on my little laptop in my little in a little apartment that I rented with a roommate while going to school. I was trying it out, made a couple of videos, didn't really go anywhere. If not, it didn't go anywhere at all. Let's face it. It was like five people watched it, and it was just me, my phone, my friends, my roommate's iPad, and like my sister. Okay? Like four people watched it. And I tried streaming League of Legends to, frankly, just like my 2 or 3 friends. But that was fine. I was just doing it for fun because I really enjoyed it. And then I think I did that for throughout the university years. And then when I graduated and I was like looking for jobs in 2015 or whatever, I would still like play different games and stream different games. Like, didn't have an audience, but I did it because I enjoyed it. And then, should I make this long story shorter? Or should I
go as long as you want.
Okay, I'm trying to go chronologically. Yeah. I never know how long I can spiel on like the more finer details, but
this will be labeled KarQ a history.
the biography. But anyways, I somehow managed to graduate university. Somehow, I definitely didn't have the best grades. Trying to balance 10 hours of gaming a day with like going to school is probably not the smartest choice. But hey, the running joke I make all the time is that all this skipping class led me to be a male online entertainer. That's the joke I run with all the time. But in any case, so I graduated in 2015 and it was just playing random games and streaming, making videos here and there to nobody. I think I took a break on the video stuff for like a year or two. And then when Overwatch came out, same thing. I was playing it, but that's the time I was working 2 jobs and I went back to school for like a random course or 2 because I didn't really have a direction in my life. So I was playing Overwatch or whatever. It's like 6 months into Overwatch's release. So late in 2016, I just finished like one of my classes, like postgraduate class or whatever. And then I was like, you know what? I should try like making videos again. It was fun. I really enjoyed it. So I made my first one regarding Overwatch and I decided to post it on a smaller subreddit called Competitive Overwatch. I don't know if you guys browse that one.
I think I've stumbled across it. It's not that active, if I recall.
Oh, Competitive Overwatch is very active. The main Overwatch subreddit is just full of like play of the games or whatever. It's not really so much content, but I thought maybe if I can put my my content out in a more selective audience, more curated audience who's interested in competitive stuff, maybe that would be like a start to at least have a few people tune in and watch it. And it did, right? It only had 4 or 5 people in university. And then when I posted it on the subreddit, I actually got like 2,000 people to click through and actually check it out. And I was like, wow, like 2,000 people, that is crazy. Like it's just exponentially so much more than where I began with. And I kind of use that energy to kind of motivate myself to try it again the next week. And I did it again. Next week I made another video. Next week I made another video. And the following week I made another video. And each one would get just like 1,000, 2,000 views, but it would actually build like a small fan base. And then I guess 4 weeks in, I kind of got lucky because I went to bed one day and I woke up the next day and one of the videos I made the week before suddenly like got picked up by the YouTube algorithm. And I kind of like caught that wave and it was like, hey, it looks like people are interested in watching this content. Let's just recommend it to like a more broader Overwatch audience. And then suddenly the video that had like 2,000 views like jumped up to like 20,000, 30,000, 50, 100, 200,000 people watched at that. Like this is insane. So then I kind of like dropped the school and everything. And I was like, I kept my job. I dropped one of the jobs. I was working 2 part-time jobs. I kept one part-time job. I dropped the extra schooling. I was like, let me try to like see where this leads to. And then I, started making content regularly. the videos didn't really hit the algorithm again, so the views went back down. It was like a short-lived surge, and I wasn't sure if it was going to last, but I kept it consistent. And then eventually later that year, things got picked up by the algorithm once again. I'm actually just a slave to the algorithm, because once I got picked up again in mid summer of 2017, that's when I started the new series called The One Tip for Every Hero, and that's the stuff that really took off and propelled myself to become a more household name in Overwatch as a content creator. And then during that time, I was like, you know what? Obviously, I don't want to put all my eggs in one basket with YouTube. Let me try like streaming again on Twitch and see, bring my audience from YouTube to see who would come over. And it was slow to start on Twitch, but obviously, being consistent on YouTube helps bring a new audience in, funnel them over to Twitch, playing it regularly, playing in the same games as other top streamers that were already established, helped me network. And a few years later, here I am. That's the long story, not really short, but
oh no, it really describes the journey, because I completely understand that there are many out there that aspire to become a content creator and don't realize it's an investment of time and effort.
it is.
And even when I'll use the Twitch correlation, the ninja effect. Oh my goodness, Ninja rated my channel. I've made it. It's more than that.
Oh yeah. Exactly.
Like with YouTube, it's the algorithm, but like that concept's still the same. You need to continue to produce,
right,
and evolve and invest. So, I'm really glad to hear that story. Now, the sort of the follow up there is, so here you are, you're making the one tip for every hero. You've finally got the algorithm, on your side more consistently.
Yep.
How do you become connected with the Defiant?
Well, when the Defiant released, or we're having an opening party ceremony, not a ceremony. It was one of those like promotional parties to kind of like introduce the team, the franchise to the city. Yeah. I got invited by the GM at the time, Jay. I didn't know who he was, but he knew who I was, and they were just looking to invite guests locally. And I was apparently on the list. He's like, "Oh, hey, like I'm Jay. Do you want to come to our launch party?" And I was like, "Yeah, sure. It's Overwatch related. Yeah, why not? It's just downtown. Just gotta drive like 45 minutes, park the car, and go." So I went there. It was quite a nice party. Really well done. Met some people. Met Jay in person. And then at the time, I was thinking, I wonder, like, since they're in Toronto, like, what can I do to help contribute to this? Obviously, I do a lot of Overwatch. I have an established name, and I kind of use that to as leverage, I suppose, or try to use that to help, like, increase my value. So I was like, I'm from Toronto. I actually, what I did? After that party, I messaged Jay on Discord, and I'm like, "Oh, hey, like if you're ever looking for any sort of content creators or anything related, I'm here." And then the thing I try to use to kind of sell the package was that I think at the time they fielded an all Korean team, and they were all from Korea contenders, so they didn't really have like that much marketability at the time. And I'm like, "Hey, I'm established. Live here in Toronto, and I have like a very Western audience. Like maybe we can work something out together." And Jay's like, "You know what? That's a pretty good idea. Let me put you in touch with some people at OAM who can help, like, work a deal out and go from there." And I was like, "Okay, cool." Got in contact with them, and they're like, "You know what? It's a good idea. Let's do it." And then here we are. That's the story.
It's interesting sort of how you describe that. I can speak to some respect the experience here in Vancouver, where, again, the Vancouver Titans first season, all Korean roster, just came out of contenders. Right. Granted, a unit of
they're already a full. Yeah, they're a unit, and I mean they were winning, which if you win as well, that helps a lot.
Yeah. And one of the challenges that they had within the market here was connecting with people. You had a group of players who really weren't accustomed to, I think, being on sort of this international scene, but then very primarily focused on an English speaking market. And for the podcast, we were somewhat of a conduit in getting that information out, but it was difficult. It was like, working out on muscles that you never knew you really had, and that takes quite a bit of time. Unfortunately, as things ended up going, it seems the decisions were made to go in a different direction, and that's unfortunate. But unlike you, we simply just thought, oh, this is cool. We never thought to pitch it as an idea or an opportunity. We also don't, have such huge existing following, and nor are we as established as KarQ. But we're maybe a close second, give or take a few million views.
The origins are kind of similar, where I went personally to the reveal party and I streamed it, and suddenly I had 2,000 viewers on Twitch. I think Flowervin shared it on her channel, and there was definitely a lot of hype surrounding the Titans at the start, Chris here said. So there was effect of there was a demand to see more, which unfortunately the Titans themselves didn't really provide to the fans, I guess.
Right.
Yeah. And that, actually just on that note, and as we sort of look to move on, you came onto my radar because of my following the Toronto Defiant. Now, it's not to mean anything more than a statement of fact. I wasn't as big into the Overwatch scene. I played the game, enjoyed playing it with friends. I like podcasting. Local franchise, I often refer to myself as a biased sports fan when it comes to all my local teams. And it was that
same here.
That connection where I see there's this guy who's, streaming content. I'm going to go and I'm going to tune in. And then since then, I've now watched a number of the videos you create. I've watched your streams because of that Toronto Defiant connection. And I think if we think about, I think moving the Overwatch scene forward in Canada, I think the two teams probably need to look to invest into that a little bit more, or, not maybe more, but continue to invest in the case of the Toronto Defiant. And I think that proof is in the pudding. You're, as it was shared on Twitter last week, back for another year. So really looking forward to that. Yeah. I do have a question though, being that you were a League streamer, what got you to become an Overwatch streamer? Was it the game and you're like, oh, this is my type of game? Because when it comes to League, Overwatch is not at all the same. Yeah.
Well, I went with the intention. I didn't have the intention of getting super famous or anything. I did it because I enjoyed it. And at that point, when Overwatch came out, I'd been playing League for 6 years. Had taken a lot of breaks. It was a love-hate relationship with it. And at the time, Overwatch, I was playing it actually a lot more than League. So I was like, you know what? Let's just make some stuff for Overwatch like I did with League when I was younger. I mean, in between then, I kind of skipped some parts where I tried streaming Hearthstone because I really enjoyed that game too for a little while. I streamed a bit of Diablo 3. When I say stream, I didn't really have an audience, but I dabble in a bunch of other games. Sure. So I dropped League.
Yes, sorry. How high were you ranked during those early stages of Overwatch?
I was before the Grandmaster and the Master, that kind of system. They used the number system.
Yeah.
For where you start at 50. Season, right? Yeah, I hit 71 in season 1.
That's pretty good.
I think you just take. I think it's equivalent to Masters, right?
Yeah.
But I had years of playing FPSs on console beforehand, and some of the skills definitely do transfer. It's just just about refining them and bringing them back.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So here you are, you're playing Overwatch, you enjoy the game, things click, content creator, and everything takes off. So I have to ask, and again, this is just based on statistics that I looked up over on Overbuff and on the Overwatch site. It occurs to me that you almost look like you're an Ana One Trick.
It's gotten to a point where I have her tattooed on me. Same with Zenyatta though, but
yeah, no,
there you go.
I'm I have nothing. I play, so when I play support, I'm Ana Moira. Those are the two heroes I enjoy playing. I'm happy in bronze. I think I found my way up to silver, which might be a mistake. But you statistically are one of the best Anas, in the world based on these metrics. And I know there's much more that goes into it. So how come we don't see you in the, Overwatch scene, either in the League or in Contenders?
I mean, there's a joke around Contenders and Contenders Trials Tier 2, Tier 3, where they can't eat because like you don't really earn anything until you make it. It's a big risk and time investment. And I've been able to build myself like a very nice career creating content and just being an entertainment streamer that like it's not worth investing my time and efforts to scrim 6 hours a day of VOD review 2 hours. That's 8 hours of just a maybe of a shot.
Right.
And honestly speaking, that maybe is still not good enough. Like, yeah, maybe statistically I'm pretty good at Ana relatively, but like some of these pro players, if they played as much ranked as I did, I'm almost confident they'd all beat me in that regard. Like it looks good in ranked play, but there's so much of a different dynamic when you play in a team environment. Cohesiveness, synergy, communication, like using your resources differently in a team game. And there's just a lot more other deserving players who put thousands of hours into that to make it to, you know, fit that role much better than me. And I would say I'm on the older side relative to the other players.
I was going to say, I mean, compared to me here.
Yeah. Relative to the other players. I'm 27 now. And these players are like 16. There's like 17-year-old prodigies. Oh, they just turned 18 now. They can play in the league. You know, I've got some years. My responsibilities and stuff are a little different compared to these players.
Right. It's kind of like in Chris's favorite sport. You can tear it up playing basketball at the local YMCA, but if you try out for a Division I school, it's going to be a different story.
Exactly.
You're spreading rumors again there on me.
But yeah, it's just I just play for fun. It just so happens that I'm like decent enough that I can hold my own and play with some of the best players on the ladder. But the ladder is just like a pickup game at the end of the day. There's just going to be like random players pulled on all different roles, and it's just about how you play well together. So yeah, like the pickup game at the YMCA or something.
Yeah.
It's just,
please teach me how to stay in Diamond without dropping back to Plat.
There's a lot that goes into it for sure.
Definitely.
But it's good fun. It's good fun.
So support, is that just the place that you feel most comfortable in? Because I was, going over some of your heroes, and the Baptiste is up there, Zen was. Is that just the comfort zone? Like,
I kind of fell into it in season 3. I was able to hit like decently high on playing just filling before roll queue.
Right.
And then when season 3 came out and Ana came out, it was like, oh, we're running this comp, and like nobody was locking in Ana, but she was meta and we need it. And I was like, okay, I'll play her, I guess. And it got to the point where the hours increased, so people like looked at the profile and like, oh, he plays Ana, just let him play Ana.
That was Death Ball time.
Yeah. It was the Reaper,
the crazy Death Blossom with the speed boost.
Yes. Yep, with the speed boost and the nano boost, and I kind of just started playing that. And yeah, exactly, Beyblade. So I was just playing that, and it just Before that though, I was maining like Zarya and Pharah in season 1 because I played a bit of DPS. But I can hold my own at all the ranks, relatively speaking. But support's definitely my best by far.
If you had to switch permanently, you'd go back. If you had to play DPS, would you go back to Pharah and?
No way.
Not now, especially.
Not now. No, after all these years of playing Ana, my aim is I think it's decent. I think if I just refine like my decision making on DPS roles, I can play most of the hit scan stuff, just because Ana's a much more aim intensive hero compared to the other support.
Widow and Ashe would be a good idea.
Like if I was maining Lucio Mora, Mercy, Brig or something, which may not be as intensive in those mechanical aspects, I'd probably have to play a different set of DPS, or maybe just play tank.
Cool.
To build that aim up slowly,
I'm kind of not hearing the love to Reinhardt, who is by far the greatest hero in the game. I'm disappointed.
Oh, he's fantastic though. No, I love Ryan in small doses. I can't play him for the life of me though. I'll be honest with you.
I look at it this way. I mean, I again, it could explain why I'm a silver tank, but Reinhardt is by far the best hero for all classes. You don't need better support when Reinhardt's in there killing theirs. Best damage hero. Like I've lost track the number of times I've somehow pinned a Pharah midair. Because trust me, I know all the angles and where I can boost myself up. And I think granted, Reinhardt's got like a Dyson vacuum cleaner on him if you hit on the right spot. So that helps. And then obviously the best way to play Reinhardt is to forget that you have R2. or M2, I guess. But I just go.
I don't even know what R2 is on the that's the
Well,
shield
I
one,
was-
right?
Yeah, I was thinking for some reason I got a controller to play Fall Guys with, and now I'm back to controls. But yeah, mouse 2 for the shield, just hammer all the way. Oh, before we sort of move into the content creation a little bit more in depth, let's say I want to become an Overwatch pro. Do you have any advice that you could provide me on what it might take or what I might need to expect? I mean, and again, I understand that you don't live and breathe within that scene, but you're probably a lot closer to it than the likes of myself and Omni. So, like, what advice could you provide?
Honestly, marketing yourself is really important, and networking yourself. And some people feel like if obviously if you're unbelievably talented, that's like marketing in itself. Like you're just top of the leaderboards all the time.
Mhm.
But if you're not, but you're like maybe top 100, there's still 99 people ahead of you. So it's like you have to do something else to kind of stand out. And I really think participating in as many tournaments as you can that may not have that many requirements, but doing as best as you can there, building some Twitter presence because all the Overwatch people are kind of connected on Twitter. Will sometimes land you different opportunities, and it's just up to you to, capitalize on those opportunities, skills that you have. It's a very general answer, but I actually think that's it. Like other than just popping off on ladder and after working hard in the teams that you are playing on, there's a tier list. Obviously, there's like really good tier 2 teams, but in order to get there, you got to play really well in tier 3 or tier 4 if that exists. I'll call tier 4 like ranked ladder. Pop off on ranked ladder, get introduced. Some people will notice you. People will literally scout. Like managers in tier 3 would be like, "Oh, we saw this guy on ladder a lot, and he's like pretty chill guy, makes good call outs." Like you're marketing yourself in games, especially if you're playing in other streamers' games. Like a lot of like
duo
contenders. Sorry, go ahead.
If you duo with another streamer or a pro player,
yeah, exactly.
that happen often.
That happens, and then people notice you, and then they'll check you out and just scout you and be like, we could try him out on a team. And if you're a good teammate and you do relatively decently, you kind of just work your way up the ladder. Obviously, there are going to be exceptions to the rule, just like everyone, where like one person just somehow bypasses it just because.
I'm 37 or Chipsa. Those good examples.
But yeah, it's just that happens in every field and industry, of course, right? So. And sometimes I can like work out at the end of the day too. Some don't work out, some do, but that's generally the path that most people would probably take.
Jonak used to be like just a ladder player.
Exactly. Yeah, but his rank spoke for himself, and he just once he showed up, he proved himself.
He's pretty decent.
Yeah, we could say he's all right.
He's okay.
1-on-1 on Ana, you can probably take him, right? 9 times out of 10.
Yeah, got him in the bag.
Back on sort of the content creation side, who's your favorite streamer?
I'll be honest. I don't actually sit and watch a single stream. I'm one of those guys that bounces around 5-10 minutes at a time between different streams.
Okay.
Same with YouTube. I actually don't really have a favorite in Overwatch specifically. Outside of that, I don't really think I have a favorite streamer. I don't watch that much Twitch. I'll bounce around before I stream on Overwatch streamers just to see what's going on, or a lot of people online. I actually watch to see like who's playing, so like I know if I queue up, like who am I gonna run into today, and it would be make good content. I'm always thinking from a content perspective. From a bit, I'll say business perspective.
Sure,
a bit more.
So it's more a who am I going to run into? Will this work out? Is this the experience that I want to provide? And I guess, have there been days where maybe you even venture outside the world of Overwatch, or is Overwatch the thing? Like, I don't know. I'm not obviously watching your stream, 8 hours a day. Unfortunately, the day job gets in the way of this. But yeah, like, I guess what goes into that? Like, are there days where you play Overwatch when you'd rather not, or you're playing Overwatch and queue times are like, well, I'm going to spend 5-10 minutes, maybe longer in between matches? Like, how do you manage that?
I think earlier in my Overwatch career, I was thinking I had to only stream it because when I did try to dabble outside of it, I think when Fortnite was hot in 2018, I was like, I tried streaming this as well. I would see drops of like 70% of my audience not tuning in at all. Oh, I don't know if this is going to work. But more recently, I've learned to balance it out more for my sake and not worry so much about the numbers here and there. So lately, if I don't feel like it, I'll actually not play it. Like yesterday, I actually started my stream playing God of War on the PS4. And I was like, I'll play this for 2 hours and I'll play Overwatch. And I ended up playing God of War the whole stream for 7 hours. I was having so much fun with it. But it's at a point now where I've been able to build an audience that I was still able to garner like a decent viewership. It's not 70%, but I'd say probably like 50% of my normal audience there. But like I did strictly variety, no Overwatch, and I was still able to get there. And like I've learned not to be afraid of that and just do it for my own sake because I actually like the game. But I don't do it often though. Overwatch is still definitely 95% on stream, and then for YouTube it's strictly only Overwatch for now. But stream I'd like to dabble on a few different games here and there. Is
the YouTube connection purely algorithmic, or is it just
it is algorithmic? I did a sponsored thing for Blizzard where I did Overwatch League specific and not general tips targeted to the mass audience, and even that I saw like a huge drop in viewership, and it affected my last video I put up because I think algorithmically your channel didn't do too well there. Maybe it will recommend it less or whatever. I don't know. It's a bit complicated. Obviously, I think if you always put consistent good content out, even if like you see a little dip, you'll be able to recover. And I've seen that over the years too. Like it's always going to be up and down wave. And I can't, I have to work those things into my expectations or else I'm just going to always be disappointed in myself. Always trying to compare myself to others.
Got a question there, Omni?
Nope. Not in that case.
Okay, well, the last question I have just then on the content creation side. I asked you what advice you'd give sort of a young Overwatch pro. What advice would you give a young content creator? And I say young, I mean, I don't imagine me suddenly becoming a content creator, but hey, someone like me could. So what advice could you give us?
Like the cold hard truth.
Cold hard truth.
Cold hard truth. I think shorter content works better at first. Hear me out on this one. I always use this example where, okay, let's say I want to learn how to cut an onion. And I go on YouTube and search up, how do I cut an onion? And I see someone established like Gordon Ramsay spend 20-minute video. Gordon Ramsay, how to cut an onion. I'm like, it's Gordon Ramsay. I could probably sit there for 20 minutes and watch him. But then I see, if I somehow like, obviously it's ranked by views, but let's just say I just scroll randomly to like low amount of viewership. And then I see, a video with 5 views and it's also 20 minutes, how to cut an onion. It's like, which one am I going to more likely click? Probably Gordon Ramsay because he's already established. When you're trying to build a new audience, you only have so much time to kind of hook them in. And I feel like 20 minutes is too long for someone that doesn't have a base to go off of. So that's, I was thinking of like that when I was making content for Overwatch. I'm like, I remember reading a psych study where it's like people's attention span is like what, 3 to 5 minutes or whatever before they decide to like do something else in general. And I thought the same for videos because I find myself when I click a video and I'm like, oh, it's 20 minutes, feels like too much of an investment. I'll click it for like 3 seconds. And if it doesn't already catch me in the first 3 seconds, I just click off and do something else. So I actually made 2-minute Overwatch videos to start. So I made 22 tips or 23 tips in 2 minutes. It was like something I did. And that one actually did really well at the time. And then once I was able to hook and build like a foundational audience, then I slowly increased like content because I have a dedicated audience now. Now, in the case of podcasts, it's different because what I've noticed with a lot of podcasts, how they do to grow is actually they'll put important clips of those out. So if I I use the biggest podcast I can think of, Joe Rogan. Instead of like the main podcast showing up my feed at first, I saw like a JRE clips, Joe Rogan Experience clips thing. And it was just like a 5-minute snippet of one of his guests. And those ones would pull me in and watch the whole thing if I was invested. And then I see it for a bunch of other podcasts now. I see so many of them have a separate channel called Clips where they'll take snippets of the main podcast and throw it up there, because that's a lot more digestible and consumable. Like you see it on TikTok. You have like 10 seconds, 15 seconds, short content, but like always like stimulating. So you just like keep going for it. And then the dedicated audience will watch the long stuff, but it's very hard to build or keep people's attention for that long without like reeling them in first. So biggest advice, not only on YouTube, but just all platforms, is just probably start slow, which is why Twitch in general will fall inferior in terms of like raw viewership numbers. Like having the value of a live viewer watching hours is innately like more valuable than like a single viewer on YouTube, just because they have to be there longer. So in order to build, I always say, the best way to build a Twitch channel in 2020 is also like having a successful YouTube channel where people can see snippets of you, which is why a lot of streamers and stuff are now doing like 10 minutes their games, or like some of them are actually just short clips. I don't know if you keep up with the Overwatch YouTube scene. There's like channels called like Noob Hunter or Fresh Nuts where they just pull streamers clips, like 10, 15 seconds, 20 seconds of them, quick, next clip. So people just get small doses of them, and then they have that short amount of time to see if they want to check out the rest of their stream for the long form content, which is their live stream.
So I'm afraid we're going to have to leave like 90% of this interview on the editing table, really. To make
I've already noted the 30-second clip that I'm using. It was the advice to be content creator, use something short. The Gordon Ramsay analogy is phenomenal. I just want to point out. I'm going to steal that. I'm not going to claim it as mine, but I may use it.
You totally can. Just change it. Just be like LeBron James teaching me how to shoot for 20 minutes, or Coach John.
And how is that in relation with your content for the Defiant? Are you shooting ideas back and forth with them, or they just tell you, "Oh, you do your thing," and or is it a mix?
It's probably a mix of everything. There's a couple recommendations I want to see happening, but like it's going to take time to implement, because when you work with larger, when you're not like I'm an individual, so if I want to make an executive decision, I do it. If the Defiant have to make a decision, it has to go through so many layers, because that's just how it works. It has to be approved. So like things are a lot slower in that regard. But I bounced ideas. I told them what I think works, just because I've built it successfully once, and I feel like certain things will work better than others. But at the end of the day, the biggest thing to help like the Defiant is to actually win more games, because winning will always drive in general interest, and that will feed into it and cause a chain reaction.
Yeah.
So I have an idea for you. You do 20 tips for 20 Overwatch League teams and how to beat them under 2 minutes.
Under 2 minutes. This team beat them by doing this. Yeah. But I've always thought Overwatch League itself is also like already a subcategory of the general game Overwatch on the thing. So I'm like, do I want to go even more specific than Overwatch, which is already like not even a top 10 game in terms of like ship and market share for gamers.
Right.
Yeah, well, unfortunately, it's been knocked aside by Among Us, and when someone figures out how to esportize that title, Among Us scrims
dominating the algorithm right now. Oh, smart IQ move, beating this person by like lying their way through this, and it has like 6 million views. I'm like, oh my goodness.
How to rank up to GM in Among Us.
Yeah.
Or whatever the equivalent would be. So as we look to wrap up the episode, I wanted to ask a couple of quote unquote light questions. Jumping back to Owl, I've just made you Overwatch League commissioner for a week. Is there anything that you might change, or anything that you might try to introduce during that period of time?
COVID permitting.
Yeah, COVID permitting. I mean, obviously the pandemic, limits things. So let's presume it's the old normal, or whatever that new normal may look like.
Probably a longer season, but more breaks in between. Instead of having it where the season ends and then there's 4 to 6 months of nothing, just off-season moves, and then just sitting and resting. I don't know if everybody will agree to that, and we always have to remember it's not real sports where they need off seasons to recover their body, because they're traveling all year and all that stuff, and I understand that. But like, I watched basketball mostly.
Mhm.
So I know like the All-Star break is the closest thing that A players have, which is like 3 or 4 days if they're not already nominated for the All. From November to April if you don't make the playoffs. So it's a long time. But for Overwatch, February to September is quite long. It is 7 months, but I would say instead of like one break in the middle, like definitely space it out because these guys are gamers. They do need their rest. Don't get me wrong, like mentally and everything to check out. But doing like the big tournaments this year was a big change with like the summer showdown and all that stuff. And I think it's a successful model. And having like hosting the homestands relevant to like bigger those kinds of styles that like add together for a full season standing record would probably generate a lot more hype. Even I was excited to tune into some of the tournament matches this year, and I don't even watch that much OWL. There's probably that, and then give these players like 2 weeks off or something, so they can like work that travel to vacation and see family and all that stuff into the year, so like they don't go 7 months. These guys are young; they're 19, 20, 18, just turned 18, right. And they're like living out by themselves. Make them, fly around, COVID permitting, play in your tournaments, whatever, for 2 months, live with the team, but like take 2-3 weeks off and then get back into it. 2-3 weeks off, get home, spend time, recuperate, and then go back into it. Because, yeah, I think it just works better for gaming. And that's just my take. Obviously, there's a lot of pros and cons of this model.
So basically, load management.
Yeah.
Like Kawhi did.
Kawhi Leonard.
Didn't help him much, but...
Yeah.
Well.
There's far too much basketball talk going on right now. Even though I totally get the references and I totally know what load management is, I know who Kawhi Leonard happens to be. There's backstory here, basketball's dead to me. But then being a bitter Vancouver fan could probably explain why.
The Grizzlies. Let's go.
Yeah. It's still sore. I noticed, and then maybe it's not something you thought of, 222. Are you a fan of it?
Yes.
Or yes? Okay.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that even before you finish the rest of the question. Yes. All right.
Okay.
Love it.
So
I thought I was the only one on the planet that liked it.
No, you'd be in the majority.
Great.
Surprisingly.
Not
Once
on
people
this
have tried
podcast,
it out.
though.
Yeah.
Oh, really? Surprisingly.
Yeah. Well, so Sam and I, it's not that we don't want to go back to the old way, but to us, we thought maybe there is a way to have essentially like a 1-3-1, or like it doesn't have to be or it's not 1-3-1, sorry, 1-2-3. Like the idea being is each pool is represented, but we do also concede that gets you back into the world of a Sombra Goats, which, I know for many people, that's just like going back to what Goats would be. But I not that, we as a podcast have all the solutions, but, it did seem that when 222 got introduced, a lot of people shared what their thoughts were, whether or not they had given it a fair shake. Hero pools. Is that something that you think has hit the mark, or does that need to maybe be taken back to Torb's workshop? And
that one, I think the majority of people said it didn't hit the mark, but this one, I have an opposite opinion. I think that one hit the mark for me specifically, being biased, because I'm a streamer and I play the game, 6 hours a day, 5 days a week or whatever for the stream. Having that variability in team comps every week or 2 weeks that they change the pool keeps the game more interesting for me, since I play it so much and I don't have any attachment to, like, obviously I play a lot of Ana, but I can play other supports as well, and I don't mind it as much. But some people who obviously play actually only one hero, when their hero gets banned for that week, they don't like that. And it's like they don't get to play that much, and that 1 week they have some time off. They're like, wow, my hero's banned and ranked and I can't get a good. I can understand that perspective. Yeah, for me, because I play so much and I have to play every week, it keeps it interesting for me.
All right, so I think I have one more question here. So I have noticed you appearing on the Battle.net launcher once or twice. So I know for a fact that When is Overwatch 2 coming out?
I wish. Honestly, if they threw any sort of crumbs to any creator, we'd be all over the oh my god,
I know,
Overwatch
like
2 stuff. So
100 of 10-minute videos up on YouTube.
they'd be everywhere
Yeah.
if we ever got a crumb. But they're very good at, not breaking their NDAs. So I got nothing for you. And I don't think anybody else does. Or maybe if they do, they sign something. But I can tell you, I didn't sign anything. I know nothing as well. I know just as much as the next guy. So I'm hoping it pops off.
Overwatch 2 is currently a bet between myself and Sam. And I had said that I felt that it would come out this year. And I listed all these reasons why I thought that might be a possibility. It doesn't obviously look like it will.
No.
And therefore, we're going to have an episode full of basketball. So it's going to be so much fun.
Yeah, you're invited to come over instead of Chris, who's really not a fan of the topic.
What do you watch? Hockey?
Well, I did watch basketball. I'm simply bitter with how the Grizzlies left town. And then when the Grizzlies were here, the experience with the team and how the league treated Vancouver. As we've now seen with the Raptors, with some time, investment, and an organization that knows how to grow within the market, good things can occur. Grizzlies never really got that shot. So I'm a little bitter about that, and therefore I blame the NBA. And then it didn't help that the Sonics, left. There's a lot.
That's the next closest team, right? Yeah.
A lot of PNW hate here. I could have been Sam, and I could have been like following the Blazers, but no. By then I was done. So hockey, soccer. Again, I love sport, so I'll pretty much, if it's competitive or even amateur, I'll watch it. And then esports is just because I like gaming, so that's my thing.
Sounds good.
And I guess sort of on that note, talking back about esports, what is your favorite game of all time? It doesn't outside of Overwatch. I don't. Maybe it is Overwatch, but let's drop Overwatch from the mix. Favorite game of all time?
Maybe old school RuneScape.
Oh,
okay.
I grew up playing that. That played a very strong part in my life between when I first started in 2003 all the way till now. Obviously, it's been on and off, but that might be the game I put the most hours in of all time, just because it spans 17 years.
Yeah.
I still play to the day. Yeah.
Yeah. RuneScape has a dedicated following. It's an interesting thing about it. I find that those who love it.
Yep.
And then those that don't may not actually know about the game. It just, again, I have my small ecosystem of gaming communities.
Mm-hmm.
It was just added to Steam, right? Like a few days ago.
That's the most modern version of the game. So I don't know if you guys played it. Maybe you tried it a bit at one point, but
the old one for sure.
Mm-hmm. I mean, they split off into two separate games. I mean, the main game kept going in a new direction that people didn't like, and then they decided to reboot an old version of it. 2013. My lights went off because it's scheduled at 11:55. Hey Google, turn on all the lights. Sorry for everybody who's listening if I turned on their smart home system.
I'm sure a lot of people will complain in the podcast listeners that it's gotten dark all of a sudden.
No.
The magic of audio.
But the game split off, and then they made the old version, and I was playing the newer one for a bit, and I decided to go back to the old one. So the Steam actually pulled the newest modern version of the game. So not everyone. That one has a smaller fan base than the old school version, but it stays alive because of microtransactions.
Mm-hmm. So here we are. We're wrapping up our segment. And before we get into the phrase, are there any final words of wisdom you want to share to all of our listeners there, KarQ?
About what? Point me in a direction here. That's
life, gaming, anything.
Basketball.
Make sure you take showers every day and eat well. If you're looking to make content, do it because you love it. A lot of people that you watch probably didn't get this overnight. It was like years of work that you didn't see go in. And it's just, and if you're ever curious, look it up. That's what I did. Self-taught, everything. You don't know how this works? Search it up. That's what the internet's for. It's a beautiful place. Sometimes dangerous, but also, such a amazing resource, wealth of information. You can learn literally about anything. I didn't know how to do any of these YouTube things, business marketing, but I just taught myself because I said, hey, why not?
Awesome. If you're looking to follow KarQ, you can find him on Twitch. He is twitch.tv/KarQ. YouTube channel is youtube.com/KarQ Games. And then on Twitter, you are KarQ Games. It took me a moment to connect those dots.
I wish I could drop the games, but I can't because
someone else is sitting on KarQ.
I couldn't get those names. Yeah, unfortunately. But
one day.
Yeah, hopefully one day.
Yeah. But again, thanks for joining us. Hopefully we can get you back at some point over the course of the season. But for those of you still listening to the podcast, we're going to take ourselves a short break and then dive into the fray.
Back into the fray.
Hopefully everyone now knows what it takes to become a content creator. If you ever want to become one within the Overwatch League, you need to go and create a short video as to how to cut an onion.
Yeah, I'm tearing up here just from that interview.
I see what you did there. But back on to the Overwatch League specifically. Show notes. I wrote so many changes. We kind of poke fun at the slow times, and this past week has been far from it. So let me rapid fire go through all the changes. For those of you keeping notes at home, hopefully you can keep up. So Houston, we've seen Linkser, Blase, Dante, Muma, Jeski, Meko, Hureg, and Dream all no longer be in Texas. Florida has seen the departure of Saya Player, who has already found his way to Valorant, Karian, Byram, and Chris. Over in London, they've cut Shui, Aldo, Babel, Jians, Cleston, Hailey, Krillin, J-Mac. The Guangzhou Charge have announced departures of Neptuno and Chara. Chengdu Hunters have said that Bacon Jack, 18 are both gone. The Guangzhou Charge also cut Waya and Crystal. San Francisco Shock could cut, and I'm saying cut loosely. I mean, it's mutually parted, players leaving retirement, what have you. Arachne. The Glads have said OG, Faustus are gone. Dallas has said Onigod, Note, Paintbrush Closer, Crimzo, Trill, Gamsu, and AKM are gone. The Seoul Dynasty have announced that Hokari, their GM, is leaving. LA Valiant have said farewell to McGravy, Gig, and Apply. The Hangzhou Spark have said Adora, Ado, Sasun, Ria, Bebe are gone. And there's probably a few more that somehow I didn't cover. Haxel, we already talked a little bit about retiring or announcing his retirement, so he's no longer with the NYXL. The big change is that Dallas now has one player.
You think that'll be enough?
It might be, but
if it was the K, it might be enough.
Yeah, how ironic is that? You know what would be cool? If someone made a kill feed, Overwatch kill feed video for all these guys being cut, like a Genji Blade ultimate just slashing through all of them.
Oh, mega kill. Yeah, and again, I use the term cut. I know not all teams were doing cutting. Some of it was player departures and retirements. It was just, there's been so much movement. It was difficult to go through it. First, I was like, okay, we're going to talk about each and every one. No, I don't think we can. So let's actually sort of talk at a high level before we maybe talk about a few of the players that or names that we see in the mix there. There is some belief that teams are making these changes to no longer have to pay players during a pandemic. And there may be some truth to that. Contracts themselves essentially run to a certain point. And if the team doesn't exercise an option or determines to release you, there's language around that taking place. The Overwatch League has said, however, teams must have a minimum of 7 players signed to their roster by the new year. And we're talking, I want to say it was like early in January, if memory serves me correct. So that's still the case. And if the season doesn't start, and we'll talk a little bit about that a little down the road, you're paying for players that technically aren't playing, because much like any professional sport or esport in this case, the contract is for a term. It's not like an hourly wage. So it could be that teams are doing that. But then I think back to the conversation that we had with Adam many, many months ago, and how there was probably going to be, changes throughout the league. And we didn't really know what that meant at the time, but I kind of wonder if maybe now teams are sort of coming to a realization as to where the market lay as to the player affordability. Rumor was players were getting paid bank in the first season and somewhat in the second season. Now, with obviously pandemic impacting revenues, I'm kind of wondering if maybe there's been a realignment of the bottom line, so to speak. Mm. And in that particular case, with so many players now in the market, this is not a player's market. This is a team's market. So that kind of helps move the needle in that direction.
Right.
But, I'm sure there, maybe, Sam, for instance, you always have, real smart takes on the business side. Omni, the competitive scene, better than most. Like, is there something I might be missing here that I'm maybe not fully understanding?
No, I think it's the same thing that will happen at the end of every season, really, where a lot of the teams that weren't really happy with their performance or just the general direction will just have to drop a lot of players. And unfortunately, even if you make it to the Overwatch League, that doesn't really secure you sort of a career unless you're like a gaming warlord, like some of these guys are. Your fate kind of is foggy, sadly, and I'm kind of concerned whether it might push away players from the league and more into streaming and stuff like that. But that's only expected from teams who want to retool or like London who want to change directions. Looking at these names, I've bolded a few that I'm sure 100% that someone who will pick them up. Dante, McGravy, Karayan, Crimzo, Gamsu. There's quite a lot of talent just going out there. OG as well. These are sad. I'm more looking forward to the signings of players than to the drops. But yeah, what can you do? Free agent is, I guess, another nice term to unemployed. So I wish luck to all these guys in finding a spot.
Yeah, I think excuse me there. I think this particular off season is I think we will look back at it and call it kind of the exodus. There's been a couple of things that kind of happened, and we've talked about this in the past, but I think smarter people than us who have been mentioning that this offseason, like if you think the names that are retiring now are crazy, like you're going to see some things this offseason. And of course, nobody knew the offseason would be like November. But like I think actually on the reverse, there are going to be good players, like what I would call an Overwatch League quality player, like a player that should be starting on at least half the teams that won't get a contract. So all these names that we see here, some of them won't get contracts, even the names that Omni listed. And the big reason for this is something that the league kind of slipped in near the end of last year. And I think I can't remember if we talked about it when we were talking to the Defiant. But the 2-week contracts are a big deal. It's exciting from a team perspective. It's horrifying from a player's perspective, right? Because now I think don't be surprised if teams go from 11 to 10 players down to the minimum 7 and then just fill out the rest with 2 weeks, right? Why commit to Muma if you don't know if he's got anything left in the tank for one of your kind of season long spots, when I can just kind of rent and drive for 2 weeks and see what happens, right? If they're good, then maybe we'll think about another 2 weeks. If they're bad, we cut bait. That sounds, disgusting when we're talking about, real human beings as people. But I think that's the kind of ugly side of this business right now, is because I think for the first couple of years, the players had a lot of control over their destiny, especially with, I think it was like 1-on-1 contracts and things like that. And now the control has definitely shifted over to the owner side. And I think at the end of the day, like lot of them are now making very unpopular Overwatch League competitiveness decisions, right? Like if from our perspective, I think we've already kind of decided that if Surefour or Shockwave don't go back to their respective teams, like we kind of understand. But if you're looking at it purely from like, is my team going to win? And we see that they dropped one of their most talented players with like nothing to fill that up, like that can't look good, right? So I think this is, I wouldn't say the beginning, but I think there's actually still more names to come, because a lot of these really good teams, I think one of the names that was missed was that the Fusion dropped Boombox just I think today.
We talked a little bit about it last episode because he had dropped a looking for team before
the team came out. But there's going to be more of these good teams. Like, who are the Shanghai Dragons going to keep? I don't think they're going to roll it back. I don't think the Shock are going to roll it back. So like there's going to be some crazy things out there. So this is kind of your mental preparation if you're not prepared.
The list of players is long, and I think there are, you actually nailed all that I had on my list there on me. But one of the things that I at least view this as, and from a perspective of both the Titans and the Defiant, is you now have these two teams that have an opportunity to, if they're going to embrace, for instance, the Canadian flag, looking at the likes of Note or whomever, and then on top of that, you have someone like McGravy. I think McGravy would be good for either team. Yeah, it didn't maybe work out very well in LA, all things considered, with how the Valiant season went. But he's got a good, solid personality. He's a good kid. Like, he's marketable, and it's always nice to have marketability on your team. Not marketability in so much as the player who is the star, but then knows it. He's more like a guy that, hey, I have fun. Super actually is a good example. Super's marketable, whether you like him or not. And I'm not trying to say McGravy and Super are the same. They're actually their personalities are quite a bit different. But Super's marketable, and it's good to have someone like him on your team.
Yeah, like any type of entertainment, while the main competition is in Overwatch itself, we certainly do need that out of the game competition as well to attract the fans. And I'm sure there's quite a competition in terms of jersey sales and viewers and whatnot. So in order for the league to survive, they really need to take care of those personalities, because that what really brings in the viewership. I think it's not the orange and black of the Philadelphia Fusion or the red and black of Shanghai Dragons. At the end of the day, it's about the players, and if they're not interesting, if they're all like popping off but they're not like saying anything, it could be nice for a couple of players, like as sort of a persona, but we need those other types of guys who can really carry a team personality wise, is what I mean.
Yeah, and if I look at the two teams, I think the Vancouver Titans are in a position where they need the personality more than the Defiant. I think the Defiant have reached the point where now they need to win.
Sure.
As far as those sticking around, prior to sort of late news this afternoon, show notes had Houston adding Junkbuck as a co-head coach. So it's Junkbuck and friend of the show, Harsha. London promoted Nuki to GM, and then Houston promoted Cool Matt to GM. This one, I will admit, kind of caught me off guard. I know Cool Matt at the start of the season had stepped down and went into like a management role. I can't remember if they actually even defined what that role was. But that took place. He's now becoming the GM. But what was interesting was how that was shared. Essentially, it was announced via an article that the ownership group of the Houston Outlaws equally own Checkpoint XP. There was no press release. And so it came across as a leak. And I remember seeing people talk about like, oh my goodness, is this true? Like, it's kind of left field, but no, that's how that was shared. And why I mention that is the late news. The Boston Uprising posted on the Overwatch League website, so each team has a team site, a microsite, some of which have blog posts. And Boston Uprising announced that a bunch of their players are coming back because they want to stay in Boston. So, I want to say it was Fusions,
Color Hex,
Myeongbong, I didn't see anything about Jerry Punk.
No, that was the strange emission, I guess. Punk Jerry. Yeah, that's all.
I'm trying to think who else is in Boston.
No, it's they just announced fusions: Punk and Color Hex and Myungmong.
But again, those were sort of late announcements today, and as was with podcast lore, probably more tomorrow or today, depending on.
But they didn't
perspective.
Drop Jerry. Jerry is in the exact same position like Shockwave. So
yeah, but it's just weird how it was sort of shared, like it wasn't on social. Yeah. Let me phrase that: it was on social. Hey, we've gone and we've committed to some veterans. Click here to read more. Oh man! So that is the movement over the past week. I'm going to imagine we're going to see a whole lot more, and the reason for that is the fact that October 24th marks the start of the free agent season. That's this weekend. With an asterisk, if someone is on a 2019 option that had not yet been picked up, that doesn't actually occur until November, at which point they become free agents as of November 20th. So the free agents now are players who are on a 2020 contract, or the contracts are completely up, or the team had essentially a release clause or something built in. The other players who are on one of these options, and that could be like, not that Shockwave would qualify, so a bad example because there's no way he has a 2019 deal with the Titans. But those players, I think Jerry had been around since 2019, hadn't he?
He might have been.
So it could be that now these are teams that are still evaluating opportunity before cashing in on the option. And I'm not trying to suggest that that's, I don't know. It's the one thing I kind of wish there was more transparency with, simply because I'm so accustomed to it in traditional sports. Like, I go to capfriendly.com to find out every contract I need to know in the NHL. Can't really do that.
I've always kind of found that weird though. Like, I mean, on one end, like obviously we're stats nerds and we want to know how the salary caps work and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. But on the other end, it's like, I don't know how much my best friend makes in salary. Like, why do I know Louis Eriksson's salary?
Because you like to punish yourself. No, so you're right. It is kind of weird. The way I look at it is that when you have structure such as this, it's for me, it's the cap I care how much a player makes. I simply want to know is the tie to the team so that you can almost do the fantasy sport. Fantasy sports require data, require information, and the more that you have available to you, the better the fantasy can become. Anyhow, that's my 2 cents. What other news is going on in the world of the Overwatch League? Well, not so much Overwatch League itself, but by extension, contenders. Watch contenders earn skins. Simply put, it works similar to the token system, which means you may or may not watch enough based on how you're watching to earn skins. Each month, there'll be 2 skins released. I think it's, Genji and Mercy this month? It shows you how close attention I paid. Essentially, it's the contenders league theme style skins. They don't look too bad, but I'm not all that inspired to go and watch contenders for the sake of the skins. I'd watch contenders if I wanted to watch contenders. Oof. It's not a shot on contenders. I just don't know enough about the scene. And
maybe you know more about the scene if you watched it and got some skins.
True. That's totally true. And quite frankly, it's the chicken or egg. Which comes first? If you order both from Amazon, it's the easiest way to find out.
Fair.
Dad joke all the way. I want to talk about some rumors, only because I know Sam is relishing in the fact that this rumor could very well mean he wins a bet. The hot rumor is that Overwatch 2 is likely going to release next year. Now, again, this won't be a surprise to the likes of Sam, who told us much earlier in the year that was going to be the case. It's a little bit disappointing for me, who suggested it might launch in 2020. And essentially, the rumor is that it will launch in sort of coordination with the delayed BlizzCon that's taking place in February. And as a result, the Overwatch League itself will delay its season to allow for it to occur completely on the new version of Overwatch, Overwatch 2. I don't know the veracity of this rumor. It's been reported on, quite a bit, and there are some clues. So, for instance, PlayStation Brazil had tweeted that 2020 will be the year Overwatch 2 comes to the PS4. That was before the pandemic thing occurred, and you had the Vancouver Titans obviously tweet that out. That was awesome. But I'm looking at the clock right now, and I don't see how it happens in 2020. I agree. I think it'll be 2021. But boy, if you really wanted to build some pop and to reinvigorate your league, that's a way to go about it. Doesn't necessarily mean it'll be successful, but it's also clean. Can you imagine the league starting in Overwatch 1 and then introducing an entirely new play style and engine that drastically alters heroes in a manner that it will, and have that happen midway through the season? Better yet, wait until the start of your playoffs and do it like that. None of that adds up. So I truly see that this might be a possibility, but that also does mean the Overwatch League might not kick off until, according to these reports, April.
And yet, Overwatch League has constantly, spiced up the league, if you want to call it that, multiple times before. So I wouldn't be surprised if they do actually implement it in the middle of a season.
Mm-hmm.
It would go with league lore.
Yep. On a Wednesday.
But my suggestion that they'll never take is just make a shortened season, man. Like, it doesn't need to be 9 months or however months it was supposed to be long. Like keep it to 15, 17 games, have a set of playoffs, call it a season.
You just want to
get ready for Overwatch 2. I mean, that's a big part of it, but I just think less is more. Like, who cared about the LA Gladiators versus the Houston Outlaws in week 15 of the league?
Good point.
I don't know how to argue with that. But then, are you suggesting having a first half year season and then a second
maybe if they're ready, if Overwatch 2 is ready, but I don't know. I was really annoyed when they got rid of GOATs for the last quarter of last season. I'll forever be salty about that. I was again really annoyed when they threw in hero pools in the middle of the season and changed everything again. And then I mean, not their fault, but changing to a regional style thing midway through the season was also again very weird. So I'm just kind of tired of them moving the goalpost every single season. So if you're going to move goalposts, move it at the end of the season.
But what happens when they introduce a patch that adds a new hero and drastically alters the style of the game? It's the spice of life. What makes us live. Oh man. It'll be interesting how things will trickle out.
Hey, Overwatch
we'll be here for the ride.
Gotta earn that paycheck.
Yeah, that's exactly that, because they don't obviously have a hard enough job as it is.
Well,
but here we are at the end of a pretty long episode. I mean, add in the interview to our record time here, and we're talking about a buck and a half, a little bit over that. So thank you for tuning in if you have made it to this far. We obviously try not to have our episodes go that long, but then when you have guests like KarQ, you want to allow them every opportunity they can to talk, and thankfully he did. That said, we actually have another pretty cool guest lined up for our next episode. I'm not going to let the cat out of the bag quite yet, but he'll be joining us to talk a little bit about why he follows one of the Toronto Defiant or the Vancouver Titans. And again, this is part of our Get to Know a Fan series, a segment that we're going to be running throughout the off season to allow you, our listeners and fans of the Overwatch League, fans of the Vancouver Titans, fans of the Toronto Defiant, tell us and all of our listeners what it is about these teams that got you to follow them. And in turn, just give you an opportunity to share a few thoughts on the teams themselves, the game, the league, and really, again, make it about the community, not about, three guys that like the sound of their own voice. But as we look to wrap up every episode, I ask you for your final words of wisdom. So, Omni, what poetry have you written for us today?
Well, today, to spice it up a little, instead of words of wisdom, I will share some thoughts of wisdom. That's it.
What the hell is the difference?
No, I just did.
Well, no, the thoughts. Did you not feel the thoughts come through?
Yeah.
Oh, dude, I did not feel those thoughts come through.
Well, you missed them.
I think you need to leave a longer pause for the people just to really hit that 2 hour mark. Because I think, honestly, if you guys have listened to all of this stuff and you've lasted till the end, spend an extra 30 seconds and give us that 5-star review. Okay, thanks. Bye.
As for me, just a reminder, you had heard the ad spot a little bit earlier. Extra Life is taking place in a couple of weeks. I know myself and Omni will be streaming. Maybe Sam too. We'll have some good fun looking to raise money for Children's Miracle Network hospitals, but specifically the BC Children's Hospital for ourselves. If you think you wanted to get involved, please reach out to us. We'd love to have you on Team RSP and take part. Our team goal is to raise $1,500. We're about 10% of the way there. It's a big goal, I know that, but if you have it in you, please, if you can, support us with a donation. All donations are tax deductible, and if you're curious as to how to do that, we've got some links on social on RSP Cord, but also you can reach out to us either of those places, and we'd be happy to fill in the blanks. But as we do with each and every episode, please drop those reviews if you haven't done so already. If you have a friend or family member you think might be interested in the Overwatch League, get them to tune in, listen to an episode. Maybe you came by for the KarQ episode, you stuck around for the rest of the show. Maybe you were always here. We love you either way. But if for some reason you haven't clicked that subscribe button yet in whatever podcatcher you listen to us in, please do so. We'd love to have you back. But on behalf of Omni at Omni Strife Sam and another Sam Chan, myself, Chris at Lightforce, we're going to sign off this episode with those words that you've been waiting for such a long time. Catchphrase.